It's a good act. Yeah.
Oh.
The first holiday card I sent out featuring a Polaroid of myself in nothing save a green Speedo and a Santa hat was something of a happy accident. I was in Salvador, Brazil on an extended holiday of my own invention called the post-divorce honeymoon. Sun-saturated, middle-aged, and living in a perpetual state of what the young call celebration and the old call denial. I spent much of my time on the beach in nothing more than my Speedo. After one such day, I ventured to a bar, then another, and then somewhere else, and God only knows where after that. Next thing I knew, a blunt object was tapping against my rib cage. I opened my eyes to find that I was once again on the beach, this time at dawn, and a local policeman was standing above me. "You Americans really overdo it," he said. After I stood up, the officer proceeded on his way. Watching after him, I felt an itching around my temples, and reached up to find that I was wearing a Santa Claus hat of mysterious providence. A woman passing by snapped a photo of me with a Polaroid camera. I asked her to snap a second, this one for me. The photo turned out exceptionally well, and seeing as how it was November, the only thing to do was make copies of it and mail it to my family and friends in time for the holidays. I returned home to find that the response was tepid at best. My best friend Ron and a few others were overjoyed. My mother expressed grave concern, and the majority responded with either tacit disapproval or indifference. My own response was a thing of some complexity. A part of me considered the picture an aberration, something never to be repeated for the duration of what I assumed would be a return to a respectable existence. Another part thrilled at the boldness of my act. The picture of me lingered on the refrigerators of friends long after other holiday cards were thrown away. If my card made some people slightly nauseous, it provided others considerable enjoyment, and it was, at the very least, a conversation starter. And was the traditional holiday card really a superior alternative? Who among us honestly thrills at the deluge of cherubic babies and happy families that mark the start of the holiday death march each year? Who has not learned to dread the colored envelope with the seasonal stamp and the handwritten, semi-recognizable name emblazoned in the upper right-hand corner? Am I the only one who, upon opening such a card, thinks, "Those matching sweaters make you look like a family of Yorkshire Terriers"? I think not. Swayed by such arguments, I vowed that every year I would travel to a different place in the world, have myself photographed in a green Speedo and a Santa hat, and mail the resulting picture to all my friends and family. The years passed and the pictures multiplied. There I was in New Orleans, surrounded by drunken youths hoisting beverages the color of antifreeze. There I was in Juarez, riding a donkey with chafed, flea-bitten thighs. There I was in the French Alps, descending the world's longest ski run at Chamonix with frozen nipples and markedly shrunken testicles. The settings changed, but the tone of the cards was the same, slightly ridiculous, often exuberant. An annual portrait of an aging man confident enough to be photographed in a green Speedo and a Santa hat anywhere in the world. After the 20th card, however, certain things began to bother me. For one thing, I began to age. At first it was subtle, a gray hair here, a wrinkle there, but as the years went on, the changes grew more pronounced. For another, I developed a suspicion that people were befriending me for the sole purpose of getting my holiday mailing list. I'd never remarried, and I wrote off my concerns as the paranoid delusions of a man grappling with the onset of permanent loneliness. Then decided that, for the 21st card, I would go to Egypt. Once there, for the first time, I found it difficult to find a setting. There I was in front of the pyramids in my getup, besieged on all sides by shady characters demanding I hop on their camels for an exorbitant fee. I had learned my lesson on that donkey in Juarez, and no amount of persuasion could get me atop of one of those stinking, spitting beasts, no matter how amusing the picture might be. There I was in a belly dancing club surrounded by pensive men. There I was in the Valley of the Kings. There I was floating down the Nile on a felucca piloted by an expressionless young farmer, doggedly trying to save enough money to marry the woman he loved. He had told me the story while readying the camera to photograph me, and the picture showed me not with the usual kooky bon vivant smirk, but with an expression that I would call, well, thoughtful. My belly sagged over the waistband of my Speedos, and my chest was covered with white hairs. And despite, or perhaps because of, a lifetime of revelry, my face was lined with ridges. On top of all this was the red hat, looking all the world like a cherry on top of a prune sundae. I sent that photo, not the others, and Ron wasn't the only one to express disappointment. But I didn't stop my ritual, not just yet. Next fall, short on ideas for exotic locales and still without a picture, I went to Paris. I packed the green Speedo and the Santa hat, but throughout the trip, I found myself reluctant to remove them. Any day now, I told myself, but the Speedo and the hat stayed packed away. On the last day of my trip, I wandered to a touristy cafe and ordered an espresso. It was one of those crisp fall days, people everywhere, breathing, talking, biking past. They swirled around me like boats around a man on an inner tube, but strangely, this didn't bother me. When the waiter came with the check, I handed him my aging Polaroid camera. With a surprising lack of displeasure, he took my photo, the picture of an old tourist like any other. I wrote "Happy Holidays" in the corner and gave it to one person, myself.